You are staring at a brown water stain on your bedroom ceiling. It was not there last year. The roofer told you in 2008 that those architectural shingles were good for 30 years. Lifetime warranty, weather rated for hurricanes. 15 years later, the shingles are curling at the edges. The granules are washing into your gutters every time it rains. And the contractor who came out last week wrote you a quote for $14,000 to tear it all off and start over. Now picture a wooden church in Borgund, Norway. Black tar coating the timbers, roof shingles dark with age. That church was built in 1180, 845 years ago. The roof has been recoated maybe 4 or 5 times in 8 centuries. The wood underneath is still solid. The shingles are still keeping snow out of the sanctuary. And the substance they used to do it costs about $5 a quart at any farm supply store today. The Norwegians have a name for it. The Amish in northern Indiana use a slightly different recipe. The British Navy waterproofed every wooden warship from 1660 to 1850 with the same material. And by the end of this video, I am going to tell you the exact 1934 Department of Agriculture formula. A forest service engineer wrote down in a technical bulletin that disappeared from circulation 8 years later, never to be reprinted. It works on the asphalt roof you already own. It works on the cedar shake roof your neighbor has. It works on the metal roof you have been thinking about installing. You do not need to start from scratch. You do not need to tear anything off. I first heard about it 3 years ago, sitting at a kitchen table outside Shipshewana, Indiana. The man across from me ran a buggy shop. He was pouring coffee into chipped white mugs and pointing through the window at a building maybe 60 yards away, a low rectangular structure with a steeply pitched roof, almost black from the eaves to the ridge. That, he said, is the harness shop. My grandfather built it in 1927. The roof has been recoated twice since then. Once in 54, once in 88. I will do it again in maybe 12 years. After that, my son might. I asked him how long he expected each coating to last. A roof done right with pine tar, he said. A man should not have to worry about it for 30, 40 years. The roof on the meeting house is older. Nobody alive remembers the last time it was touched. I did not believe him. I wrote it off as exaggeration. Old country talk. Then I started digging. The substance is called pine tar, sometimes called Stockholm tar, sometimes wood tar. It is made by slowly cooking pine wood in a low-oxygen kiln until the resins boil out as a thick, black liquid. You can buy a quart at any equestrian supply store for about $5. A gallon costs around $18. And when you mix it right and apply it correctly, it transforms ordinary roofing materials into something that outlives the man who installed it. But the tar is only half the secret. The other half is what you mix it with and how you apply it. And this is where the modern roofing industry diverges completely from every recommendation that worked for 200 years. Pine tar contains a complex mixture of phenols, terpenes, and resin acids, natural compounds the pine tree produces over its entire lifetime to defend itself against fungus, insects, and rot. When you concentrate them through slow distillation and apply them to wood or asphalt, 3 things happen at once. First, the tar penetrates. It does not sit on top of the surface. It soaks deep into the fibers, into the seams between shingles, into every microscopic crack and pore. Modern asphalt sealants form a film. Pine tar becomes part of the substrate. Second, the phenolic compounds are antimicrobial. Mold spores cannot germinate on a tarred surface. Algae cannot establish a colony. The black streaks you see on every modern asphalt roof in humid climates, those are glowiocaps, magma colonies eating the limestone in your shingles. Pine tar makes that biologically impossible. Third, the terpenes self-heal. As surface temperature shifts through the day, the tar slowly migrates, filling new cracks before they can leak. The Forest Products Laboratory in Madison, Wisconsin documented this in 1976. They called it thermal mobility. It is why a tarred roof actually gets stronger with age, while an asphalt shingle roof gets weaker. Penn State Extension published findings in 1968 from a 5-year study comparing pine tar treatments to commercial roofing sealants on wood shingle barns across central Pennsylvania. The pine tar-coated barns showed 0 leakage events over the entire test period. The control group treated with petroleum-based commercial sealants showed leakage in 7 of 12 buildings within 4 years. The study concluded that pine tar was, in their own words, demonstrably superior to all commercial alternatives evaluated. The study ran for 1 printing in the Extension Bulletin series. Then, the Department of Agriculture stopped funding pine tar research. In 1991, researchers at Norway's Norwegian Institute of Wood Technology examined 47 stave church roofs across Scandinavia, the oldest dating from the 12th century. They documented that pine tar-coated wood under regular maintenance, meaning recoating roughly every 30 to 50 years, showed wood degradation rates 92% lower than control specimens left exposed, 92%, 800 years of evidence. And the finding got a single line in an architectural preservation journal that nobody outside Scandinavia reads. Pine tar production was the largest export industry of colonial America between 1700 and 1830. North Carolina alone produced over 100,000 barrels a year, all of it shipped to British shipyards to waterproof Royal Navy warships. The phrase, Tar Heel, still applied to North Carolinians today, comes from the workers who walked through pine tar barrels barefoot during the harvesting and barreling process. When wooden ships gave way to iron in the 1850s, the British Navy stopped buying. The American pine tar industry collapsed almost overnight. Over the next 60 years, every state east of the Mississippi shifted to coal tar, then to asphalt, then to the petroleum-based shingles we use today. Pine tar did not disappear because it stopped working. It disappeared because the Navy stopped buying it. In 1934, a Forest Service engineer named Harlan Carter wrote a Department of Agriculture technical bulletin titled Pine Tar Application Methods for Rural Building Maintenance. The document ran 38 pages. It included exact mixing ratios, application schedules, and cost comparisons. Carter documented buildings in the southeastern United States with pine tar coatings dating back to the Civil War era, buildings still under their original roof structure 70 years later. The bulletin was distributed to county extension offices nationwide between 1934 and 1942. By 1943, it had been quietly removed from the recommended publications list. By 1948, the Department of Agriculture was distributing pamphlets recommending asphalt-based roofing materials manufactured by companies that had emerged from World War II petroleum capacity. I pulled a copy of Carter's 1934 bulletin from the National Agricultural Library archive last spring. It is still there. It has been digitized. The pages are clean. The recipe is unchanged. Nobody reads it because nobody knows to look for it. Now, here is where the suppression stops being subtle. The American roofing industry is now a $79 billion business. The average American homeowner replaces their roof twice in their lifetime, at a current cost of $11,000 to $25,000 per replacement. That single line item, roofing, is the third largest household maintenance expense after the structure itself and the heating system. A pine tar coating program, one initial application followed by recoating every 30 to 40 years, costs approximately $300 to $700 in materials. For the average house, over a 100-year period, the total expense is under $2,500. Compare that to 4 asphalt shingle replacements at $15,000 each. $60,000 spent in the same century. The math is not subtle, and the math is exactly why the Asphalt Roofing Manufacturers Association lobbied successfully throughout the 1950s and 1960s to have pine tar excluded from residential building codes in 38 states. Look at any modern building code. Pine tar is not approved as a residential roofing application. It was deliberately legislated out of the consumer toolkit. The asphalt shingle is not on your roof because it is the best material. It is on your roof because it requires replacement on a schedule someone else profits from. Now, if you are looking up at your existing roof and thinking this only applies to people building from scratch, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. You do not need to tear off your shingles. You do not need to hire a roofer. You do not need a permit for what I am about to describe, because pine tar coating is legally classified as maintenance, not modification. Here is what you do. Pick a stretch of dry weather. 3 days of clear forecast in the 60 to 80 degree range. Spring or early fall works best. Avoid extreme heat. Pine tar applied above 90 degrees gets gummy and uneven. Buy your materials. You need pine tar. Get pure Stockholm tar or kiln-burned pine tar, not pine tar oil or pine tar pitch sealant, which are diluted commercial products. A gallon runs about $18. For an average 1,500 square foot roof, you will want 3 gallons. You also need raw linseed oil, 2 quarts. about $20. And you need a stiff bristle exterior brush. A $9 paintbrush at any hardware store works fine. Mix in a metal bucket. 3 parts pine tar to 1 part raw linseed oil. Stir slowly with a wooden stick. Never use a power drill. Friction heat changes the chemistry. The mixture should look like thick black molasses and pour off the stick in heavy sheets. Sweep your roof. Get the granular debris off the surface. Get the leaves out of the valleys. Get the moss off the north slope. You are not stripping anything. You are just clearing the path. Apply with the brush. Work in long horizontal strokes from the ridge down to the eaves. 1 shingle row at a time. Pine tar is thick. You will need to push it into the surface, not glide over it. Plan on roughly half a gallon per 250 square feet. Every shingle should look uniformly black when you finish. Let it cure for 72 hours before any rain or foot traffic. The tar will skim over in about 6 hours and feel dry to the touch. The deeper cure takes 3 days as the linseed oil polymerizes through the tar matrix. That is it. You are done. Total cost for a 1,500 square foot roof is under $80. Total time is 1 weekend. You will not touch that roof again for 30 to 40 years. I tested this myself on my own property in 2019. I have a 12 by 16 outbuilding behind the house. Old asphalt shingles installed in 2003, already showing curl and granular loss. By the time I started this experiment, I coated the south-facing slope with the pine tar and linseed oil mixture. I left the north-facing slope untouched as a control. 6 years later, the untreated side has lost approximately 40% of its surface granules. The shingles are visibly curling. There is a small leak above the door I have to monitor every spring. The tarred side looks nearly identical to the day I applied the coating. Slightly weathered, slightly grayer in places, still flexible, still completely watertight. I have not touched it since 2019, and I do not expect to touch it before 2049. Knock on a section of that roof, and you hear the same dry tight sound those Norwegian church beams have been producing for the last 800 years. You might be wondering why, if this is so effective and so cheap. You have never heard of it before? The answer is not a conspiracy in the dramatic sense. It is something more ordinary and more honest. There is no marketing budget for a quart of pine tar. There is no advertiser paying to put this recipe in front of you. Home improvement shows are sponsored by the companies that sell the expensive alternatives. Your local hardware store stocks pine tar in the equestrian section because somebody might use it on a horse hoof. But no one tells you what it does on a roof. The knowledge was never destroyed. It was simply outspent, drowned out by 100 years of advertising, pushed to the back of a shelf, forgotten by everyone, except the families who never stopped using it. But I told you at the start of this video that I had something specific, the 1934 Forest Service Bulletin from Harlan Carter. This is the part where you want to pay attention, because this is the refinement that turns the standard pine tar application into something that even most Amish families do not use anymore. Carter's bulletin specified on page 22 a third ingredient: beeswax, pure unbleached beeswax, melted slowly into the warm pine tar and linseed oil mixture at a ratio of 1/4 pound of beeswax per gallon of finished coating. I did not understand why until I called a chemist who works on traditional building materials at the University of Vermont. He explained it in 90 seconds. Beeswax is a naturally hydrophobic long-chain hydrocarbon. When you blend it into pine tar, it forms a microscopic lattice that locks the tar into place during thermal cycling. Without beeswax, pine tar slowly migrates over decades and develops thin spots. With beeswax, the coating stays evenly distributed for the full 40-year service life. Carter's accelerated weathering tests at the Forest Products laboratory showed that beeswax-modified pine tar lasted 65% longer than standard tar coatings. 65%. The difference between a 30-year roof and a 50-year roof from a 1/4 pound of beeswax that costs about $7. The Amish families I spoke to in northern Indiana had stopped adding beeswax in the 1980s because pure unbleached beeswax became hard to source locally as commercial honey production consolidated. They knew the technique. They just lost access to the materials. Today, you can buy a pound of pure unbleached beeswax from any beekeeping supply company for $12. The original recipe is back within reach. So, the full finale recipe, the one that combines Stockholm pine tar raw linseed oil, and beeswax in the exact ratios documented by Harlan Carter in 1934. Is this 3 gallons of pure pine tar, 1 quart of raw linseed oil, 3/4 of a pound of pure, unbleached beeswax. Heat the mixture slowly in a large metal pot to roughly 140 degrees, stirring with a wooden stick until the wax is fully dissolved. Apply warm with a stiff bristle brush, working from ridge to eave, 1 row at a time. 1 coat is enough. Cure 72 hours. Total cost for enough coating to treat a 1,500 square foot roof is $89. Expected service life, based on Carter's accelerated testing, and 800 years of empirical evidence from Scandinavian stave churches, is 40 to 50 years. 40 years. You will never touch that roof again. Your children will not touch it. Your grandchildren might, if they feel like it. That is what the asphalt shingle aisle has been keeping from you. You did not just learn a roofing technique today. You recovered something, a piece of working knowledge that belonged to every American colonist between 1700 and 1850, written down by a Forest Service engineer in 1934, confirmed by Penn State in 1968, kept alive by Norwegian preservationists and a few thousand Amish families in northern Indiana. The men who tarred the roofs that still stand after 800 years were not smarter than you. They just had not yet been convinced that the answer had to come from a manufacturer. If you are the kind of man who believes that real solutions were quietly pushed aside, so someone else could keep sending you bills, you already know what to do next. You are going to call the equestrian supply store this week. You are buying a gallon of pure Stockholm tar, a quart of raw linseed oil, and a half pound of unbleached beeswax. You are doing the math one more time on what you have already paid in roofing replacements over the last 20 years, and you are going to feel something you have not felt in a long time. When you climb up on that roof for the first time and look down, you are going to feel ownership. Now, I want to hear from you. Of everything I laid out in this video, the 1934 Forest Service Bulletin, the Penn State study from 1968, the 800-year-old Norwegian stave churches, or Harlan Carter's beeswax refinement. Which one surprised you the most? Leave a comment below and tell me. I read every single one, and the conversations that happen in those comments are where the real knowledge gets traded. Do not stay silent. Someone else watching this needs to hear what you have to say. If this changed the way you look at the roof over your head, subscribe. This channel is not for everyone. It is for people who are done being sold to and who are ready to recover what was taken from them, one suppressed technique at a time. My next video covers the single mineral the Amish add to their well water every spring that strips lead, copper, and arsenic out of any contaminated source for under $3. The municipal water treatment industry has spent 50 years pretending this technique is folklore, but I have found the 1908 Department of Public Health Bulletin that proves it works better than anything you can buy at the hardware store today. I will see you there.